another episode of Hope Unfiltered. I am Renata Singh, and joining me is Pastor Jay.
Hey, great to be here, guys. Really awesome about today.
Yeah, it is a good day. It's a great day. And we just want to say thank you to you guys for your awesome feedback from the second episode on tattoos and piercings. A very heavy topic, we knew, but really pleased by all the feedback that we would have gotten and thoughts and stuff like that you guys would have shared with us. We really appreciate connecting with you guys.
Yeah, definitely. I think what really surprised me was the amount of feedback we got, comments, people just with their takes and stuff. And when guys, we appreciate that. We don't always have all the answers with everything. We're not pretending to have it. So it was definitely appreciated. Yeah,
and that's the purpose of this space, to have an open space that you can feel free to, jump in the conversation. So we really appreciate it. But I don't know if this is a lighter topic or I don't know.
Let me start with the icebreaker first now, because this one.
So let me drop it on them, yes.
So we have our mystery producer. Yeah. By popular demand,
Yes. I got some great reviews on the mystery producer aspect of it.
Okay.
I was telling you.
So, you ever heard of a game called Start Bench Sell?
Yeah,
you kind of introduced it to us. Yeah.
Well, I didn't want the viewers to know that, but okay, then take it away from there.
We're unfiltered here.
Right, so it's more on the football side of things, Start Bench Sell, as it pertains to a player. One he'll keep, one he'll bench, one he'll sell. But we're going to take it.
We're selling Ronaldo. Go ahead.
But we're going to take it as it pertains to. It'll be along the lines of the topic. I know you didn't introduce it yet, but maybe when after this game, the viewers might have an idea, right? Yeah. So we're dealing with romantic flicks.
Romantic.
So I'm going to give you 3.
Sell.
Wow.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I'm going to give you 3 romantic. I could say chick flicks, but and you all will decide which one you keep in, which one you put on the shelf, which one you're getting rid of.
Okay.
Jay, you're a romantic flick kind of guy.
So let's.
Well, maybe not now, but back in the the
Never was
days, really.
Never was.
It's the very manly response, soldier.
Bro, don't even.
All right, so
I've had to endure some. I must admit that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he exposed it. That's
Yeah. So
Right.
yeah.
So the 3 movies are 1, The Notebook. So you all know that one, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, yeah.
2, Dear John.
No idea about that one, but
Channing Tatum.
Yeah, Channing Tatum. And number 3, Titanic.
Everybody knows Titanic.
So which one you keeping? Which one you putting up on the shelf to collect some dust? And which one you're dashing away?
I don't know, dear John, how long that one is, because I know the next 2
That one
long.
came out.
Like how long the duration is.
Oh, those are probably hour 45,
Yeah,
hour 2.
That's that more normal one.
Yeah.
Titanic was real long.
Yeah,
Along the
Titanic
same
is
lines
like
as
the
Notebook.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah.
So that's a big factor for me now.
the length.
Yeah, of course.
Wow. Okay. What's your favorite? Well, you don't know what Dear John is, so that's out of the question.
Yeah,
for you.
I don't know that one.
I'm going to just give you a context of Dear John. John is a soldier who loves Savannah, college student. He re-enlists post 9/11 attack, but the 2 continue to be in touch over letters. Fate tests their loves many times over the next 5 years. So, yeah, that was the gist of it. So, you and your significant other never...
You and your significant other.
Never
Your
what?
wife?
Never saw that one, Dear John?
Never, sir.
Okay.
Never.
All right, that's your homework.
Sorry, I'll pass on that one. But how I'd rate this boy? I definitely selling Titanic.
Wow.
Selling Titanic, because I had the opinion, and I'm sure most men watching this right now had the same opinion, that it had enough room for Jack
Look,
on that piece of
can't
boat to float.
Can't do it.
Now, Titanic was, it was whatever.
It was
Notebook was, I guess, because it had a little more real life kind of everyday exposure, like with when was the woman was getting sick, like she couldn't remember and stuff. So Like just
It was a little more touching.
well, no, well, more I guess more easier to
Which
relate
one are you
to.
talking about with
Okay.
Notebook? With her losing her memory?
So, well, I don't know. That's the right movie.
No, and that is the other.
Don't ask me, I watch it, but I don't really I remember Dear John because that's my boy.
So, all right, here.
No,
what-
but Channing Tatum was in another movie where his wife had an accident, lost her memory, and the whole movie was him trying to get back her to fall in love with him, even though she don't remember him.
That's
not-
So,
Well,
so
I like the
give me
lady in that
synopsis.
movie. I can't remember either.
Give me the synopsis on Notebook there, because I probably remember the wrong
The wrong
thing.
thing?
All right. Just
The
now, just
Notebook.
now.
That's a real
Well, yeah,
popular one.
my wife gonna laugh
That's with
at
not
this one,
Ryan,
boy.
Ryan Gosling or whatever
Yeah,
his
Ryan
name is.
Gosling.
Well, I don't know actors and thing. Or they call it.
The Barbie guy.
Noah, a poor man,
Ken.
falls in love with Ali, who comes from wealth. They are forced to keep passion for each other aside due to their societal pressures and differences in the social structure of their families.
Right.
Yeah.
It kind of coming back.
This is the one where they were running together and started to read and they started to hug
Yeah.
up and they have that meme where
I don't
he's
really
always
like
be asking,
Ryan.
what you want? And she's like, I don't know. And they just kind of use that for when men ask a woman what they want to eat. And they
Still
don't.
unanswered to
Yeah,
this day,
true,
right?
To be honest with you, the only thing I keep in there is the movie with Channing Tatum. Not for the movie, but because of him. I don't like Ryan. I do not like Ryan. So, all they could do all they want for that
What about
show.
Leonardo?
Who?
DiCaprio?
I don't like him.
I will choose to keep Dear John because it's the shortest movie on that list.
You never even watch the movie.
I don't care. I'll enjoy it easier. Clearly, you can't tell how much I remember from these movies.
All right, so
I think Titanic deserves a fair chance. I feel like it throw it away just because of the duration.
but Titanic it have romance, but it also is a bit
Historic, kind of,
more
right?
sad too, as
So
it pertains
based
to
on that,
I
long sigh.
I find like it was just so it's supposed to be plenty historical thing, but it was just made into
This,
just that story and it
Romance.
was just
you think that kind of
like-
made it not about the history, but about
like so if you hear the movie Titanic, what everybody's remembering.
Jack and Rose
Jack
and everything, and
yeah.
he
So,
died, and yeah.
okay. So we keep in there, John, putting Notebook on the shelf and dusting away with Titanic.
he's selling Titanic, but
cool.
I feel she might keep Titanic on the bench.
Yeah, something.
And
I
sell
like that
Notebook.
Celine Dion song too now.
All right, cool.
That's it?
Yeah, that's it.
All
All
right.
right.
So the mystery producer
Hey,
has accomplished
it's a nice Pondo icebreaker, Titanic.
Titanic.
Yeah,
Yeah, look at
yeah,
that.
cool.
Well, you have just broken the ice on the
Yeah.
fact that Jay doesn't know anything about these movies, right? But yeah, no, he
That's
coming
all right.
with, you still on the icebreaker part, and
yeah, I took a while to kind of figure out what
What
he
he meant.
talking about. Anyways, you want to tell the people what the topic is this week?
it's all about toxic love.
Toxic love.
A big part of our culture and society, and I think a big discussion that people having and not really having.
Yeah.
You know, we hear a lot about it, but we just want to take it
Yeah.
a little step further.
Yeah, definitely. I'm really excited for this episode. I think it's one of those topics that everybody could relate to, literally,
Yeah,
because we're gonna be,
Definitely.
talking about the different types of toxic love and stuff like that later on in this episode. So, yeah.
It's a lot to cover, right?
It is a lot
It's
to
a lot to-
cover for sure. But before we jump into the meat of the discussion,
Yeah.
let's lighten things a little bit. Share an experience, a personal story where you have been in a toxic relationship or been the toxic friend, partner, parent,
Mm-hmm.
leader, churchgoer, whatever.
Good Lord, you want me to sell all of them?
Oh, you have experience with each one?
I think so,
Maybe.
you know.
I feel I have.
I ain't in fronted, like, oh man. I'll start with this one. Just in general relationships, I think, like, especially early on, it would have to be on myself. Because, like, this was something I had to work through and still, honestly, work through at times. Would be with dealing with insecurity. So, I think the toxic part was because I was insecure and not dealing with that aspect, I would, whether directly or indirectly, put people under pressure how they needed to act or behave around me. So like I didn't do well with critique, that kind of stuff. So it really wasn't healthy relationships.
Okay.
So people who did love me and want to support or, was doing life with me, they had it hard. So I would say more in a general sense, I think that's when I look back, I see that as a mark where places I had to actually address.
Yeah.
Just that insecurity and how it impacted.
Other people.
Yeah, because I made, like, so if they came and they were just making a joke about something that I really didn't need to be offended by,
Yeah.
it would create a problem, a big discussion, that kind of stuff. I think. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think just from hearing you talk, one of the things that I thought of is that our toxicity may not necessarily impact us, but definitely the people around us.
Sure.
And that's something that we have to be aware of. My story, though, clear my throat there. So there was a period of time in my life, or like when I was younger, and was in a relationship. I became toxic, but I became toxic because of
Why?
a specific situation that happened in the relationship. So it was because of broken trust.
Right.
I became controlling. And I
Because you don't want to experience that again.
Correct. So it was kind of like a defense thing, but it was still toxic.
Yeah.
It was still toxic. So that was my experience
So
with.
I want to put you on the spot here.
Oh boy.
Just give us maybe like when you look at it, when you look back on it, what was some of like one or two ways you were controlling then?
Checking phones.
Oh,
Not wanting the person to go out without me or hang around their friends. So there was a
Right.
measure of insecurity that was birthed as a result of.
no, I get that.
Regardless of what the reasons for that was,
Yeah.
I could still identify that as toxic
That
because
was
it
real unhealthy. Yeah.
very
Yeah,
extremely unhealthy.
No,
So,
but the only reason I asked was just for people to hear like maybe on a more practical side,
Yeah,
like what that
yeah.
looks like, you know?
yeah, so I'm checking phones and snooping.
So how would you define like toxic love? I mean, like we talk a little bit about how, some of the things we struggle with, but like when you hear toxic love, I mean, I'm sure everybody have their own perception or maybe even because of their experience. What you think about with that?
I think toxic love is something that is harmful to both partners.
Right.
So it negatively impacts a relationship, both people in a relationship, regardless if it's one person that's toxic. I think it can, like, because of my experience, I think it can cause somebody that's probably a little more in a healthier place. It could trigger them to adopt certain toxic behaviors to combat that sort of toxicity. Well, what's your definition of toxic love, though?
I think when I look at it, especially in our modern culture, I think one of the things that I see probably more as a pastor is a lot of that controlling. So that's why I had asked you that when you mentioned it. A level of control, but not just control, but probably control / manipulation. Because I don't think it's just a matter of like, okay, controlling them, what you want them to do and stuff. I think I've seen toxic relationships where people actually manipulate and like even put their ideas onto someone else to control them or, set the boundaries and stuff. I think one of the ways that I guess from my experience with the insecurity that I saw people had to do around me was like they were always walking on eggshells. So when I think about toxic love or a toxic relationship, it's like you're in a relationship where you're always second guessing, you're always afraid. You're always afraid to say the wrong thing, do the wrong thing. And I think
And it puts a pressure too on
both sides, right?
On both sides.
But for the person who is in that relationship, of course, 100%, you can't really be yourself. Like that's exhausting. You're gonna burn out at some point.
What do you think is like the main, like what causes a person to be toxic? Is it that they don't like deal with certain like issues, challenges, struggles that they have, even traumas? You think that's...
I believe that's the place you start because you have to, for me, the average person, I want to say the average person is not going to set out to be toxic or to be harmful to somebody
Yeah.
that they love.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I still lean on the side that there are things that probably unresolved issues. So for me, like, and I said it, like, if you have things that you haven't dealt with or that you struggle with and you're good at putting on a front, it will leak out in some way, some form or fashion. And I think unresolved issues, and you said trauma, and so I think those are big parts. I think it's so complex. It's not like a one size fits all.
Yeah. Yeah.
But just to answer your question, I do think a lot, not all, but a lot of people who have those toxic traits is because they are struggling with something themselves. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. But some basic characteristics of somebody that's toxic or toxic love is conflict, competition,
Jealousy.
and need to control jealousy. Yeah. Verbal abuse, physical abuse,
Any kind of abuse,
any
right?
kind of abuse.
Yeah.
Intimidation.
That's one we probably would just pass by, yeah?
Yeah. You know, one of the things, interestingly, in reading, how they explained it is that toxic love could be so subtle that it goes unnoticed.
Wow.
Yeah. It could be so like, you know, like things that you just pass over, but if you leave it over time, it becomes this big
Right.
issue if it's not addressed.
Right.
And I found that so fascinating because I have never actually thought of it like that. I always thought, you know, there may be direct signs.
the big signs.
Things, correct.
Yeah.
But before someone lifts their hand to hit you, there may be
Signs that they are toxic.
that point, but it may be things that you would have overlooked and say, okay, right, that's not too bad,
Right.
you know?
So is that where we kind of going to talk about some of the terms that we hear nowadays, you know, like whether it's gaslighting, those things?
Yeah. We could some half of them I don't even like. I learned the Gen Z terminology.
You know, wait. Mystery director.
Mm-hmm.
You have any examples of toxic love? I want.
Yes, he gets away.
Get away,
He's
yeah.
always be throwing things at us.
Not really, no. My life
Yes,
was just
yes,
perfect.
you have.
Good.
You
See, this was an example of those little signs, people. Pray for his wife, right?
Whoever she is.
I think everybody at some point in time will go through some level of toxic love, whether it be given or receiving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just through maturity as well. I mean, when you're growing up, being young in young relationships, you're either going to give it or you're going to receive it.
Right.
For me, I think like my first relationship, you could kind of say it was toxic in the sense that, you know, I was allowing the other person to totally control everything that I do from start to finish, you know.
Right.
Whatever that person wanted.
He was in love.
Real
Right,
love.
I
know. Real
Boy.
I know what
Young
I
love
was.
now.
But yeah, that I think for me,
What would have been?
yeah. Well,
Cool.
just one of, but yeah. As it pertains to the other aspects of it with church and stuff, yeah, we have stories we could go down that road too, but we don't have enough time for that.
Well, we will be hitting some of them. eh?
But I mean, the terms though, like there are quite a number of very popular terms that we hear in our culture. Like you mentioned before, gaslighting, narcissism, ghosting,
Ghosting, that's a big one.
situationship. I don't even know what that is. Situationship.
That's just complications.
And
Just complications, yeah.
yo, I can't even keep up. Breadcrumbing, love bombing. I
Love
don't even.
bombing. I mean, but like some of those, honestly, it's things that we would have known, but it's just new terms,
New
for
terms,
a
yeah.
new generation
Yeah.
and a new culture.
Yeah.
I mean, like the love bombing, you know, someone who excessive with their love at the beginning,
Yeah.
and then when they get that person,
Yeah.
you see the true colors or maybe certain aspects of them that wasn't there before. I mean, we've seen that, like,
Yeah.
you know, in our generation before.
And it happens, that love bombing thing happens not only in romantic relationships, but in friendships as well.
Of course.
And there could be cycles of love bombing as well. Like there's some people who, you know, they use that as the way to hook you when they got you, there's no form of the treatment is not the same. There is no
Right, yeah.
consistency when it comes to the way that they treat you and stuff like that. If they see you drifting away, they hook you again.
They come nice again.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it could be in the form of attention. It could be in the form of
Gifts and
gifts and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So that's why you have to be so careful and cautious. Like, even in friendships.
So, but doesn't that say something about us if we fall in for that as well?
Yeah, of course.
I mean, if
Of
we
course.
going through cycles like that,
Yeah.
and I think that's where sometimes the toxic relationships and stuff, we have to actually look a little deeper than just
To figure out why we are attracted to,
these types of
It's-
relationships. Yeah.
because there's a reason. There's a reason. That in itself could point to some sort of thing that we are not dealing with as people.
Correct. Correct.
Because it's not normal for a healthy person to be attracted to something like that and accepting of it over time. So yeah, I definitely agree with you there. Like there's some
Something,
check-in.
yeah. I mean, I think it works on both sides of,
Yeah.
of the equation. Like, because as a pastor, I sit down with people and couples, or maybe just dealing with conflict.
Yeah.
And sometimes I do wonder, well, okay, why are you still in this relationship, this position? Now I know there are complications,
Yeah.
different circumstances. Obviously, if kids involved, that's a whole different story. But if you're just looking at two people in a relationship that you know it's not healthy,
Yeah.
and honestly, sometimes the quickest response you'll get, or at least implied, is because it's love. And so I want to ask then, is love enough to cover? You're done shaking your head. Like,
If love is enough.
yeah,
for
for,
it-
for like to overlook
no.
these toxic behaviors. I know that
I
too.
don't even think love is enough for a relationship.
normal-
Point blank, that's not like there's so many other. You could
Aspects,
love
yeah.
people, but not be compatible with them. You could love people and put the two of y'all in a house together and y'all will kill each other.
Right.
So you could love people and
So love is not the basis or not
No.
the end all
no, it's not.
for a relationship.
Maybe it's the foundation. Maybe it's the
Right.
foundation because it's very important. That's on God, plenty God. But but I think there are other dynamics to
No, I
consider.
agree with you.
when-
100. So much less in a toxic
Yeah.
relationship. There's no way that's going to be
Yeah.
enough.
You're not gonna survive on love. You cannot survive. A relationship cannot survive on love because there will be some times when that love will be tested. I believe that love will be tested, and yeah,
You have to have something more to-
correct. Yeah. So yeah, love is not all. That's not a good enough answer. Come better. And sometimes there's simple things that we could do, like take a pen and a paper. This might sound so elementary, but figure out what are the good and the bad.
So pros and cons.
Correct. Pros and cons. And really sit with yourself. And now, this is for people that are dating, in the dating phase. It may
Right.
look very differently for a
In a
married
marriage.
couple,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
Yeah, I need to make that clear before
Yeah.
all the married people go taking pen and paper and say, I'm divorced.
Like,
So, yeah, weigh the pros and cons and figure out if, hey, is this something I could live with for the rest of my life? Is this something I'm okay with?
I will go further. Take your list and put it by somebody you could trust.
Right?
Run it
Yeah.
by, because I always say this, we are our best salesperson. We will sell ourselves.
Yeah.
That toxic relationship still good for us. So you need to get somebody else in our conversation with it.
And that's the best time to do it in the dating phase. Don't wait till you get married, it becomes more complicated. Don't wait until you have children, because then it becomes even more complicated. And again, there's certain things that could be fixed in that phase. I'm not saying that just because somebody is like in a toxic space that it's like all hope is lost and stuff like that. But maybe there are some things that need to be addressed. And like you said, counsel is good.
Yeah.
Yeah, counsel
The
is
way I would say it is, it's not that all hope is lost, but all hope is lost if you don't even want to address it.
Yes.
Like straight out, it will end very badly if you are ignoring these signs, because it's not going to get better on its own. You have to be real intentional and make
Very.
some tough decisions.
Yeah. and take responsibility.
Yeah,
Personal
that's it.
respond. Like you have to understand where you're at in the relationship as a couple, but more so where you are at as an individual. Because we all contribute to a relationship dynamic
100,
and
yeah.
there are certain things we as people, as individuals, we need to, take responsibility for. I mean, I have seen people in relationships and at times me myself, you put it on the other person.
Right.
The responsibility on the other person to fix this, to fix that, to fix the next. But I always come back to this, that you have to figure out, what am I contributing to this toxic situation?
Right.
And if there is something that you are contributing to it, then you
have to own it.
You have to own it.
You have to own it.
Nothing is wrong. Nothing is wrong with that. Don't feel no how, because everybody has some sort of toxic trait.
Cheat.
Yeah.
So true.
What other term though? Ghosting.
That's a big one. You ever get ghosted?
Actually, had a question. Reverse it. If she ever ghost.
If she ever... Oh, good! Mystery director.
I was doing my research on the host now, so I know a few things.
Only one. That is a little biased.
That's a little bit toxic, eh?
It is. I feel like I'm being picked on.
So yeah, have you ever ghosted anyone, and have you been ghosted?
Yeah, I feel like I struggle with ghosting. I feel like, I don't know if this is ghosting or just me just being like a terrible person at responding to people, but I don't know. I think I may have ghosted people like back in the day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, I did.
Just abruptly. Just
Yeah.
end.
Yeah.
Walk away, no communication and
That's
stuff.
it. Whatever. You snooze, you lose. I have since I'm no longer like that. For the most part, I need to say that. But long ago, like back in the day before I knew Jesus something, as my real homeboy, listen. If somebody me real vex and we
Right.
fall out, so whatever, I don't really care. I'll just walk away and not look back or feel anyhow about. I've done that several times.
But I feel like that still is a little more like maybe reactive. So what I saw like with ghosting was like no indication. So it wasn't like a conflict or something.
It's
like
just silence.
It's just like
Sudden.
you have no idea why and stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay, I don't think I've done that.
Yeah.
Like,
I think it's a little different with that. You know, like if there was some tension, you'd kind of
you
understand
could
why.
kind of like connect it to, okay, right, there is this.
But if you had no indication, and
I don't feel like I've been ghosted.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think I have.
You think guys just get ghosted more?
No. No.
Mission director.
You could jump in if you want to know. Guys just get ghosted more?
If guys just get ghosted more.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to think so.
Yeah.
The percentage of guys that doing the ghosting compared to the percentage of guys that get ghosted,
Listen for this one. Listen, where you getting them statistics from?
Google.
You look for that. So hey, let's hear what the audience think. They could chime in the comments. Who you think ghosts more?
Who gets ghosted more?
Yeah, who gets ghosted more? Guys or the girls?
Women, I feel, is get ghosted. I see them posting up the thing like you know when a woman get ghosted,
But that's the difference. They will post it, but guys will stay silent. They ain't going to share that like that. I agree.
True. You ever got ghosted?
As a pastor, I always getting ghosted. I always getting ghosted. Too soon? Too soon?
No. It's too soon. It fits in for the conversation, but wait.
Yeah, I mean,
How
like,
often so?
let me not go into that, man. But man, that's just part of it. That's like you literally help people reach out, and they reciprocate and stuff, and then you have no idea why. Like that's
like silence, dead silence.
dead silence. You try to reach out, you might get one response here, and then after that, this thing, and yeah, that's part of this work. I could tell you that, like. That is
Does it become easier dealing with the ghosting?
no, because I think as a pastor, at least for me, I treat every person that comes into our space, whether long term or short term, as somebody that especially if they consider the church their home, I will pour into them the way that I believe I need to as a shepherd. And so when you put yourself out there, I think the hardest part is ensuring that you still do that for the next new person, because that's the hard part with it, to be honest.
Yeah, because when you're hurt like that, let's be real, you put up the human thing to do is to put up walls and say, hey, maybe I should like not give so much or not be so, put myself in a vulnerable place, because it is a vulnerable place to be. But it's a very, very interesting perspective, just it being like from a pastor, position. And I've never, you would hear people talk about it in like relationships as it pertains to like romantic relationships. But it's the same type of hurt, it's the same type of disappointment.
Well, is that and a type of love as well, eh?
Correct, yeah.
You're trying to love these people, serve them.
Yeah.
Definitely not a romantic love, but you're trying to take care of their soul. Like that's part of my role, and so it definitely is just part of it. So when you talk about ghosting, man.
Wait.
I feel like Pac-Man. On the ghost I dealing with.
Okay.
But I guess we could touch more on those things when we go into the types.
The types of toxic love. We have one more to talk about, gaslighting.
This one, but it's more like from the manipulation part.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a term that a lot of people use nowadays.
Yeah.
I had to actually look up this one. It's almost like deliberately and systematically. That word really caught me. Like feeding false information to someone else to make them question their own beliefs or what they know or what they think they know.
Wow, that's crazy.
That's a different level. But I think how I see it happen in our culture is like when you know someone's trigger,
Yes.
like you're playing on those things.
Okay. Yeah.
Maybe to make them question themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. That extreme for me when I actually saw what the accepted definition is. I think people probably just use it loosely as well.
Do you think, like, specific to a scenario like that there would be like somebody in a relationship, whether friendship or like from a perspective of even leadership, that it comes from a probably person that's a little more dominant in the relationship, taking advantage of?
It's like a power dynamic.
Yeah.
Most definitely. I think that would probably make it easier.
Okay.
You probably wouldn't find that so much, well, if the relationship is toxic, like a romantic, but if it is a healthy romantic relationship, you shouldn't have such a power dynamic.
Yeah.
But in the sense of other types of relationship, most definitely, I mean, especially if one person has the authority or the power, and that's why when I read it, I thought about, like, if you know someone's trigger, so like even couples, like if they fight, married people, like you know what your spouse doesn't like to hear. You know what, like, especially if you're in that place where you want to upset them, like you would know what buttons to push.
Yeah.
And then when you get a reaction or extreme reaction, and you could spin that however you want.
Yeah.
So I think it runs in every
But that's
possible.
not only in marriages, that's happening parent-child dynamics, that's happening friendships. People that you're close with, people that know you well enough to know.
Any close relationship.
Correct.
Yeah.
Those things that press a button.
They know how to get under your skin, right?
Yeah.
So I think like from all those aspects, because I think based on the triggering, but obviously you don't need to trigger someone to be able to feed them the wrong thoughts or contradict what they believe about themselves. I think there must be some level of closeness.
You think in a healthy relationship, is there a power dynamic there? Or is it that the two people have this mutual understanding and...
I think from a biblical perspective, I don't think all power dynamics are bad, because I think men are supposed to take on certain roles, and that's not a power dynamic, but that's an obedience aspect. I think how God has created us, He's made men and women very differently, their capacities. God values each one equally,
Yeah.
right? So it's not a question of value,
Yeah.
but it's a question of responsibility. So I will not automatically say that once there's a power dynamic, it's not good.
Yeah.
Because there are some seasons where one spouse may need to lead in a certain way or to take charge of something in a different way for whatever reason. If there's sickness in the relationship and you find yourself doing more, doing things you would normally, it doesn't mean it's a power dynamic from an unhealthy place, if that makes sense. So that's how I see it.
That's one of the things I just wanted to touch on because I know we like spoke about
Yeah.
power dynamics from the other
From the
angle,
negative
yeah.
aspect,
But
yeah.
it's important to know that the purpose of a man and a woman,
Right.
and just having an appreciation for what we are called to do as
The
a man
differences.
and a
Different-
woman.
yeah.
And it's like you mentioned, it's nothing that one gender is better than the other. God values one more than the
Right.
other. But
Maybe men, but
look.
I thought he
Not even.
I thought he produced all that back me there, but he just
Silence.
he know better. Yeah, he acting in wisdom right now.
He ghosting you.
No, I was just watching the responses from some of the questions that we gave out.
Yeah, you want
online.
to share some of them? Yeah.
So the question was, what are some signs of a toxic relationship? And some of the viewers said manipulation, control, no growth, one trying to have control over the other, where they go, what they do.
What was the one? No growth?
No growth.
Yeah, no growth.
Okay.
One trying to have control over the other, where they go, what they do, what they wear, who they talk to, etc. Lack of reciprocation, lack of communication, being blamed for what the other person does, child father issues, and the last one, no sense of humor and easily pissed off.
No
I
sense
don't
of
get the
humor.
no
Was
sense of
that?
humor. I don't know how that's toxic.
Well, the no growth, I don't think that's being toxic.
I don't think communication.
And communicate, yeah, like
I
some
don't
of
think
those.
those are toxic traits. I think it's stuff that could cause problems if it's not dealt with, though.
Maybe could point at other issues or so, but like,
Yeah.
so when you said no growth, I was like, I mean,
And not sense of humor.
no sense of humor.
Wait, and real people toxic.
But like no growth, like somebody who's not growing and stuff, that could be an indication of more personal things. Whether don't have the confidence, seem try, or
Yeah.
that could go so many different ways. It could be yes, part of toxic, they being toxic, but I don't know. I just think some of those are just borderline that it doesn't have to necessarily. And again, we don't have the context, so how
Of it,
they
yeah.
were saying
Yes,
it,
yeah.
it may well be a
Have a little more depth.
depth
Yeah.
to it, but
But just generally taking it like that.
I wouldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't rest on that. But some of them definitely, the controlling, the manipulation,
Yeah, the controlling,
yeah,
definitely.
stuff like that.
Those are things that, ladies, let's have a chat, I know a lot of times we talk about men being controlling and stuff like that, men controlling. And I'm not saying they aren't, sometimes some men are, but some women are very controlling as well. Like, we have to have that discussion. It's not gender specific, it really isn't.
Yeah.
And if we don't address things like that, we will continue to lead in toxic.
So for both men and women, take Ren's advice, take a piece of paper, write down not just the cons and the pros for the other person, but maybe look at yourself.
Start with yourself. That's a good place to
Start.
start.
Just see.
Yeah.
What was it good
And
you bring?
married people could do that too.
Yeah.
In terms of like, what are my toxic traits? And please do not tell me you have no toxic traits.
That is your
We
toxic
all-
trait
correct.
if you don't say.
We
Miss Shida.
all have toxic traits. We all do. We need to address those things, and we need
Yeah.
to come to terms with the fact that we are not perfect. We are not perfect. I'm not perfect. I
Most
don't know about you
definitely.
all, so.
Most definitely.
And we all have things that we need to work on. So
I think if you're not acknowledging it and you're not actively and intentionally working on it,
Yeah.
or at least setting the right boundaries, then there's more likelihood that you are going to be part of the problem in being
Yes.
very toxic. Because
Correct.
we all have that. We have a natural ego. We have a natural inclination to want things for ourselves, to
Yeah.
being selfish. we might say it like that, we might look at it like that, but it would come across
Yeah.
that way. And if we're not aware of ourselves,
Yeah.
or at least willing to acknowledge that, then we definitely can go and put things
Yeah.
in place to prevent it from becoming toxic.
And that's something that I mean, especially if you're in a relationship with someone else, if you're only about me, and only pointing out the bad things in the other person, you know, like, are you serving in the relationship well? Because we are called to serve each other in whatever sense it is. If it's in a friendship, if it's in whatever setting,
Right.
we have to do well by that. And for us to do well, we have to fix us. We can't come with scraps and expect honey, you know. So we have to make sure that we are in a right position. I always like, I mean, I know I'm knocking real hard, but I always feel like it begins with us. It begins with us as individuals. If we would fix us and stop looking and pointing fingers and stuff like that, then we'll be able to, you know, live together maybe a little better.
I agree. I think the first place we should be looking at, because no matter how much love in the relationship, you cannot change someone.
No, you can't.
I want to make that real and abundantly clear. You can't change someone. So we might get pushback for that, but that's all right. And so I think the place of responsibility that we have, just whether or not it's your religious view or not. I mean, we talk about faith a lot here because that's where we come from. But even just being a responsible or mature human being, you have to begin with taking responsibility for your actions. And if it's not just your actions, it could be that person wrong on what they're doing, but your reactions.
Yeah.
And I'll say this, when it comes to toxic relationships, taking responsibility of your reactions or actions, maybe taking ownership that maybe it is a relationship you have to
Yes.
walk
Most
away
definitely.
from, and you've not been doing that.
Yeah. So at some point, you have to stop blaming the other person, because it takes two to tango.
Right.
It takes two persons to be in this relationship. So if it's not having you in a healthy place or causing you to be a specific way, and you have done, some people may have done the work and try to, you know, resolve stuff.
Try
but
to make it
takes
work out.
But it
Yeah.
also takes two people for that to work. Like if there's
Correct.
an issue, I have an issue, you have an issue, but I'm the only person fixing
Working
it. You
on
are
it,
the only
yeah.
person fixing it. Then there's still going to be an issue.
Yeah.
Because there's still some sort of unhealthy thing happening in the relationship.
That's where
dynamic.
decisions still have to be made.
Correct. Yeah. Again, married people.
Disclaimer.
Disclaimer. Okay.
So picking up on what you said there, we also asked persons, what advice would you give someone in a toxic relationship? First person, I guess they heard you, they said run. Second one, go silent and leave the toxic environment.
Go silent.
Thirdly, try to get both parties to seek counseling. Leave, basically, exclamation mark. Get help immediately and end the relationship if your partner is incapable of change or doing the right thing. Next one, run with 3 exclamations and find ways to heal from trauma caused before moving on. If I was in a toxic relationship or friendship, I would have walked away completely and cut ties. So all of these are kind of on the same
Basically,
line.
run for the hills,
Yes.
leave, walk away.
Get away.
Run, to God and not another toxic relationship. Pray. I like this one. Pray, then run. And lastly, leave the relationship because it will get worse unless both parties seek help.
I would
Okay,
pray
same
while
thing I
running,
said.
though.
You'll pray.
Yeah, I think to the lead up of leaving, there are things to be considered, because depending on the type of toxic relationship.
Yeah, if it's something like abuse or so, get out.
Yeah.
Like I make no apologies for that part. There are different types of toxic behaviors, and so
Yes.
I think for each one. But if it's something that's especially physical
Yep.
abuse, even mental abuse, and so like you need to get out
You need to
because
leave, yeah.
you can't fix that while in the
No, you
relationship.
can't.
And when it comes to abuse, you being a victim actually need your own process as well
Yeah.
for healing and for restoration. So I think, yes, run. You know, I kept hearing all those answers, and I'm thinking, but in my experience, I see the majority of people stay.
Yeah. Because I think the first thing to do is like if you ask someone, what should you tell someone in that position, or even maybe somebody who may have experienced it,
Right.
they will tell you run, run, run.
Yeah.
But when you are in the position, when you are feeling all the feels of being in that position, when you are caught up in the dynamics of the situation as well, because if there are kids involved, as well as if there is some sort of dependency on the other partner,
That's a big part.
there is it's
not
not
as easy
just
to
as
run.
easy to say, all right,
Get
you
up and
run.
run,
Where are
yeah.
you running to? Do you have somewhere to go? So there's a lot, it's a lot more tricky than just saying,
Just saying to
run.
run.
So I guess that's why people a lot of times end up staying, because maybe it's easier to stay. I don't know. Like, because sometimes, like for women, some women are dependent on the husband, maybe the one that's working and stuff like that. Maybe money, maybe an issue. And then, taking care of yourself and kids,
Right.
So it's like,
And just starting over in general, like
Yeah.
this one's just thinking like, you know what, I'd rather stick with this because I know this devil and
It's
the bad-
familiar.
yeah, rather than trying to just start over life.
yeah.
I think starting a new life or a new relationship, or obviously that I think is probably one of the biggest underlying factors why people say, because everyone actually, you're afraid of change,
Yeah.
you're afraid of the unknown. So like, just, I agree with you. I think that's a big part. I rather stay with what I know, whether it's dangerous, and then I think we've fallen for a type of a lie where if it's not immediately dangerous, we kind of sidestep and treat it like it's not as important. So if it's not like an obvious danger, physical or so, but I think there's so much more to the conversation that we need to have where the mental stress, the emotionals, like you do more damage, especially if you have kids and stuff around. Like if,
It affects the kids too.
Of course.
Staying affects the kids.
no, for sure.
Yeah.
They're seeing those patterns, they're seeing a level of toxic behaviors.
Yeah.
That's what they're gonna.
That becomes their norm.
That's the thing.
And so and that's scary because they would take that as the pattern. Let's be real. We look at our parents when, in terms of like developing an understanding of what a healthy relationship looks like. Because that's
Right.
mommy and daddy, right? So whatever happens between a mom and
That's
a dad.
our basis. That's our
correct.
baseline.
And that is what we know as normal. So if you have a daughter, for example, looking on at their dad hitting on their mom or whatever, when they grow up and they're in a relationship and their significant other does them the same thing, it's because they see that as love. They see that as normal. It's what they grew up
Yeah.
knowing, unless like obviously you deal with the situation and you deal with the
Right.
trauma and stuff like that. But yeah, it does have a very huge impact.
One of
on,
the things that I think I've recognized with this is, like in that scenario that you just brought up, if a child has a lower baseline, then their situation is going to be worse. So like if we're talking about abuse or
Yeah.
we talking about, and we know that's so wrong,
Yeah.
but a child growing up seeing that as normal,
yeah,
then the level of abuse or
like
the
their tolerance.
exactly. They
That is crazy.
think about it because their
Yeah,
baseline
yeah,
is our
yeah,
extreme.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it means that whatever becomes extreme to
beyond.
there'll be a wider gap
Yeah.
for what is healthy there. And I think that's where the cycles continue
Yeah.
and stuff. But
Yeah. So it's something that, you should definitely take into consideration. Like I said, I understand like there's a lot of moving parts when it comes to like the aspects of leaving. It's not as simple as, you pack your bags and run.
right.
But it's something to consider, or at least have a plan.
I think
plan.
the one answer that we could actually probably say that could apply to every situation, because we can't say run for everyone, right? Would be do something.
Yeah.
Do something, like whether it's to reach out for help, whether it's to do the assessment, see if this is healthy. If it's not, invite a conversation with someone else,
Yes.
but do something. Like if you are in a space that you think is toxic or you know is toxic, take a step.
Yes.
Like we can't tell you, as every case will be an individual case, but whatever it is, don't stay
In that
not
place.
doing anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like take a step, whatever that step might
Yeah,
be.
definitely. Well, let's talk about the types of toxic love. So, parent, child. What does that look like?
Ooh, you're starting there.
Yeah.
For me, when I look at that toxic relationship between parents and children, I'll start with the parent side. I see parents trying to live their lives through the children.
Yeah.
Whether it was missed opportunities, whether it was they felt like they missed out in life in a certain way, a certain place, a certain decision,
Yeah.
career or something. I see them pushing their children in all sorts of directions that honestly is probably more a reflection of
Of
themselves.
them, yeah.
I see toxic parenting when it comes to children in parents move their kids into the place of their joy or their fulfillment rather than even their spouse.
Okay.
So I see that play out and they live their purpose becomes their children.
Okay.
Right? For me, when I see the other side of it, children who can't let go of their parents. Like, yo, this is the one that really gets me, like the dependency of grown adults.
Yep.
And I'm not saying that simply is moving out on your own, but there has to be, like, I would tell every adult who, working and stuff, try to seek that independence, build a good foundation, make sure you're healthy, make sure and I don't mean healthy just like in your mental or your spiritual and so, but even financially, like if
Yes.
you're blessed to have parents who would help you and allow you to stay a little bit longer, by all means, take that opportunity. But at some point, not because the opportunity there, you stay. Like I see a lot of grown adults still have to depend on their parents, and their parents encourage it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So for me, when I see toxic love between dynamics between kids and parents, I see it in all different ways like that.
So, like, yeah, depending on your parents financially when you're get up and work. Okay? Get up and work. I'll say it just like that. Like, that's just my opinion, though. Like, but
So you see
Yeah.
that as like one of the main parts.
I think that as an adult, even if you are leaning on your parents for support, they can't be your only form of sustenance when you get to a certain age. I believe that part of growing up, and this is just my opinion, I think as kids, we have a responsibility as well to our parents to honor them in that sense. And I find that depending on parents and adulthood to that extent, now I'm not saying seasons you may not depend
That's
on
a real
parents.
good point, though.
That's different, but I think like I see that as a form of dishonor in a sense. Yeah. I know that's real extreme and very harsh words, but and all you don't come from in the comment section, or you could, up to you.
It's unfiltered, so yeah.
But yeah, I think especially in adulthood. Now I'm not saying that there may be certain seasons that things may happen. You may have to lean on family for support and stuff like that. But generally, as an adult, your
daily life,
Yes,
your day
correct.
to day should not be.
that shouldn't be your position
So-
on a
So
constant.
let me play devil's advocate. I could see people saying, well, my parents love to do it or they want to do it or so. Because I even see some adults, because
Yeah.
like I told you, like, they not, like, I don't know, but I don't see parents raising kids to be able to stand on their own.
No, yeah, it's true.
I see it
Especially
more
in our culture.
in our culture, right? So for me, like if you saying that, maybe somebody might respond and say, well,
They like to do it.
yeah, well, my
So-
parents like to do it.
That's great. That's a form of, but that doesn't mean that you assume a position of comfort or you be like, that's my
You're
place to
dependent
fall
on it.
back. No, you're not
Yeah,
dependent on it.
yeah.
Great. Like, don't take away that joy from them. But that should not, you are still supposed to honor your parents in that sense. In my position, because I feel like, they're older. it's a pressure on your parents to be able, say that, okay, they have to take care of you in that sense. So yeah, I don't think it's a position that you should assume like, yeah, mommy and daddy will take care of me for the rest of my life. And parents too, like I know you love your kids and stuff like that. That's real great, but you actually do more harm in that because one day, let's
You're
be
not gonna be
real,
there.
you're not
You're not
always
gonna
going
be
to be
there.
there. So, and you're setting up your kids to
To
I mean,
fail.
even if it's at age 50, 60, whatever time, in their life that you depart from this earth, they're going to have to deal with some very harsh life situations
Right.
that could be avoided. Yeah. I think that's a part of growing up, being responsible and,
Yeah.
being able to honor your parents and stuff like that in that sense. Again, I know I use some very harsh terminologies, but yeah.
I mean, no, I would have to agree with you. I think you did a good job in clarifying that. Okay, there are seasons when you could depend on your parents.
Yeah.
Because I think of my life, there were situations that hit us, emergencies,
Yeah.
and it was good. I knew I had parents or family that
could rely on.
could rely on, but that's different from
Yeah.
dependent
That's
on
healthy. That's normal family
dynamics.
you know?
Yeah, for sure. What else we looking at for toxic?
One more
love?
thing I wanted to add in terms of like the parent-child thing is parents who at the point of marriage don't accept that their kids now have
Their own family.
their own family and understand that in a husband and wife dynamic, you are not a third party. Sorry, is it
But
true?
it needs to be said. It needs to be said. Come on.
Like, and this is something I feel like a husband and a wife needs to set the boundary. They need to come together and, tell mommy and daddy, maybe not in so many words, or maybe a conversation needs to be had, but because it could impact your marriage. If
It will impact your marriage.
impact your marriage.
Will
So
impact.
it's something that you need to set that boundary.
Mm.
Mommy and daddy, it's okay to let go. We're not running too far away, right?
I think one thing that in all of this that we both kind of touched on with the parents and children is that these are good things that can become toxic.
Yes. Yeah.
That's important to probably isolate because toxic love doesn't mean it's just negative things.
No.
It
yeah.
could be good things that we put in the wrong place.
In
Oh,
excess.
yeah.
Yeah. Because mom and dad might be like, I just, there because of concern, I love, so, yeah, but excess could be problematic at times.
You hit that one first, parents and children. Wow. What else you see?
Friendship.
Friendship, you want to hit that one?
Yeah.
Ooh. Where you see that to be toxic? How you look at friends who are toxic?
Long voice notes.
You're I toxic then. Confession, good for the soul.
Okay, just kidding, y'all. Not long voice notes. But I think in any healthy relationship, there needs to be a give and take. So
Right.
I think, again, different seasons, you may find one more giving than taking. and
Yeah,
receiving,
for sure.
but there needs to be some sort of mutual understanding and benefit in any relationship. So I think that is the same for friendship. I think showing support, having that support system when you're in a position where you need.
So I agree fully with it. You have to look at the overall measure of the friendship, like if it's given and taken. Obviously, seasons will shift one more than the other sometimes. But you see, when you said that you had to give support, this is a pet peeve of mine. If I going through something and people say, well, we wanted to give you some space and so, like,
Yeah.
I rather you. So this is my take. This is how I approach life. I rather offend you, trying to be there for you, than the option of you wanting the support and I wasn't there for you.
Just kind of like low-key ghosting, but is that kind of low-key ghosting?
I don't know, but because that one I personally I don't get that with people.
Yeah.
Like, we there for you. Like, you look at your friendships and then like when you going through stuff,
Yeah.
it's like silence.
Yeah. Yeah. I know what you mean.
So
But I think I have been like that, like in relationships and stuff like that. One of my reasons for being like that is because I find it so awkward. Like I sometimes may not know what to say, or like, like, but it's not an excuse.
yeah.
It's not an excuse if it's something that I struggle with, so I need to figure out, what are some ways, and sometimes it may not be calling them and talking down a storm, but just making sure that the person knows that you are just there.
Or are you thinking about
You're thinking about them.
Hey, I took
Yeah.
my time because I wanted to reach out to see if there's anything I could do then.
Yeah. So
It's-
now I kind of like tried the hi, hello, how are you, kind of check-in type
Right.
message. Maybe not going into any kind of long.
But at least
talk.
you're present.
Yeah.
You're present in some
Yeah,
form or fashion.
yeah.
And that I think is something that we have to look at in our friendships,
Mm-hmm.
especially if you want to see toxic behaviors.
Yeah. Jealousy. There's some friends who get jealous. Like, okay, I'm like the only
Frenemies.
best friend that you could have.
Frenemies.
And if you have any other friends or hanging out with anybody else, it's a problem.
But what about this one? I see this actually more when, like, you and I good as long as we on this level.
Mm-hmm.
But like at the moment you see either one start to elevate or things start to work out for them, their business start to do good.
Yeah. That's not a friend.
That
That is not a friend.
That's what I'm saying. Like, but you see plenty of that.
Yeah.
And so that's something that you guys have to look at and examine the
Yeah.
relationships closest to you.
Yeah. That is a big red flag. That's one of the things I have here. A story. Open my business and you'll see who supports who supports you. That's one of my
I'll just start checking that door. You had to, if I working hard for my money, you can't just open any kind of business, do it any kind of way. You had to
no, yes. Correct.
let me just make sure and have a little
You have to have a standard.
standard for
Yeah.
it, right? But I hear you.
Yeah.
You really know who with you. They rather give. I always say this.
Not just a business, like you were mentioning, just like elevation. Anything to,
That way you-
make you
yeah.
improve you.
I see people support strangers better than their
Of
friends.
course.
So
When it's a friend, it's because it's had to be free and listen.
she's talking from experience here, yo. Look at
You could tell. You could tell.
let me get a discount on the
on
package.
Yo, it's insane. Let's go. Dating.
I think we hit plenty of this.
Yeah.
Talk about the controlling, the persistent jealousy, isolation. This is one that I see in relationships.
Yeah.
I always look out and try to warn people when I see they get into a relationship and all their circles close off.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge warning sign. If you're in a relationship and to be able to keep this relationship, you can't have
Any friends.
friends,
Yeah.
any kind of life outside of that person.
Even family.
Family, yeah, trust me.
Listen, anybody that you're with that, I'm not saying your significant other will love all your friends and all your family, but you see the ones that hate all your friends and hate all your family.
Always have a problem with them.
Correct.
Yeah.
Always a problem, and they have
That's a
issues
flag,
even
that's-
like being around them.
Yeah.
Yo, run.
Yeah.
Run.
We hit that plenty.
Yeah. Marriage. Same thing, similar. Control.
Controlling, yeah.
Yeah.
What about guilting? Unforgiveness in marriage
Yeah.
causes that to get toxic.
Yeah. If it's
Um,
not dealt with.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Like,
Because that's
you know.
something that will keep coming up forever and ever and ever.
And even if you put it to the back of your mind, it affects how you behave.
How you respond to the person.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Lopsided support.
Say that again?
Lopsided support, like just one person just giving support all the time and it's not reciprocated.
So you had that in your friendship and you married the person.
You know? Yeah.
But no, it does happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's where I think you were saying, like, we need to get counseling. You have to get
Yes.
extra help
Yeah.
to start working through some of that stuff. But yeah.
I think in a marriage though that as a wife is supposed to help a husband become better and a husband is supposed to help a wife become better. Whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
So I think in terms of support it needs to have that sort of dynamic.
Dynamic working
Yeah.
on some level or the other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you have any more points for marriage?
No, because I think once you get into
Some of them kind of into.
I think for marriages, all of them that we kind of spoke
Yes.
on because you're marrying someone who is supposed to be like your best friend, like somebody who you expect to be with. So I think it all comes
Yeah.
together in the marriage, especially. The one you was excited to talk about,
Which one I was excited to talk about?
the spiritual toxic.
Oh, you wouldn't believe I have nothing here.
Nah, you.
Yeah, you see that had to be some kind of toxic, spiritual. Go ahead, talk your talk.
No, well, no.
I'm about to
The
you.
first place we look at that, like anybody, when you think about spiritual relationships and that toxic dynamic, you're obviously looking at the authority of
Yeah.
whether a pastor, a leader
Yeah.
that has that control, manipulation, the same things we're talking about. But one aspect that I see really interesting is a leader or a spiritual figure. I think we don't talk about this enough, is that they make themselves the dependency for people.
Okay,
Instead of pointing to God,
okay,
they become the answer for people.
yeah,
And I think that's real toxic.
okay,
I think that's where people fall into the place of being abused or manipulated,
yeah.
controlled. And then, of course, there's the flip side to it,
Flips
which
side,
we
go
kind of touched on earlier. Just as it have the abuse on that level, I think from a spiritual standpoint, me talking from experience, I think there is also the toxic behavior between congregants and their pastor, that
pastor.
where there's abusive, the lack of respect sometimes, lack of honor. Those are parts of it. I think it's dynamic on both sides.
And we will very soon delve a little bit more into that, because we always hear that conversation from one end, being the leader and, not being very nice to the people. But there is also another dynamic, which is also very important. It's good to have a balance between the two.
But that's something we'll dive into a different episode on.
Oh yeah, because
Will we have now any
we need
pipes?
I don't know. We need one episode.
Well, actually,
I
we're
feel
on
like we
time
need to
right
have
now. So.
Yeah.
So we'll have to continue this conversation.
Yes, but we will have a part 2 of Toxic Love. We have way more to share with you guys, but this has been such an interesting conversation.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah, I hope
we
it will
are
have helped.
having a part 2. The next episode will be.
Yeah, I say
on
we
that.
having a part 2. What mystery
They
producer?
need to make sure that they know that the part 2 is coming.
All right, thanks. So yeah, we are having a part 2. We're going to be discussing a little bit in terms of like how to leave toxic relationships.
How to deal with it on the whole.
Deal with it
Yeah.
on a
We'll
whole.
probably go more details into
Yeah.
that.
And also maybe address what real healthy love looks like as well. Yeah, that's
No, definitely paint that picture. And if it is anything you guys want us to address in the second episode,
Yes.
definitely leave a comment also.
Yes.
And we can.
Please feel free. You can check us out on social media. We're on TikTok and Instagram at Hope Unfiltered. And the podcast platforms are YouTube for now. We also air on WESN. The channel listing Green Dots Channel 7, Amplier 118, Airlink 17, V-Mobile 107, Digital 21, Flow 110, and ICNTT 105. It has been great spending this time with you guys. We'll see you guys next time.
But before we go, just hello to all the new WSN viewers that we have.
I should have said that.
Well, that's what I just said.
Okay, cool. What's up, you guys? We love you.
Thanks for the support.
Let's begin.